So today I'm joined by Stephen Doyle, a former ex-Defence Forces member and entrepreneur. You're the CEO now of Safety and Security Solutions at the moment.
Yeah, lofty title. Head bottle washer is what I like to go by.
Yeah, but do you miss the army now that you're out a long time? Or?
Yeah, I miss the camaraderie. I still am connected to the Veterans Association, so I like to maintain links like through them. But yeah, it's changed a lot. The 80s and the 90s were the golden years, I think, where we saw a lot of activity. We had the Northern Ireland issue, Operation Banner with the British Army. I spent a lot of time in Cavan Monaghan for Manad, Castleblaney on operations there. In between deployments overseas, did 8 deployments overseas, and in between that then numerous courses. So I was never idle. It was a busy army at that time. The 80s and the 90s, really, the joke was you met yourself coming off duty, you know. So it was a great time. I have to say, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, some things don't change, sorry. But why I suppose did you decide to join the Defence Forces in the first place?
Mixed bag. The 80s work wasn't plentiful. I was an apprentice carpenter actually by trade, trying to learn my trade. Money, as you know, as an apprentice is not great. So my dad was ex-military, as was my uncle, and going back the lineage went back to the 1800s, British Army, Irish regiments, yeah. And so it was kind of a natural progression, steady job, to be honest. Similar to what a lot of Irishmen would have done in the day back in the 1800s. It was a job. I didn't see it as a career in the beginning, but more of an adventure, if you like to see. I was never really on the career path. It was more just a bit of an adventure.
Yeah, sure, why not? Just take it as it comes. But do you remember your first day then going in?
I do remember it well. It was Cattleborough Barracks, 27th of June 1990, and I walked through the gates. I think I was just turned 18. I know that because I had to get parental consent to join. Once you're 17 and a half, you have to get your parents' consent. Yeah. So, went upstairs. I was in my civilian attire and just a pair of slacks and a shirt. And we were in the waiting room waiting to be sworn in by the sergeant and the officer. I think there was 2 sergeants on the board and the officer. But I won't name the NCO, but he came in and he screamed at us and he got us all downstairs and he ran us around the barracks with our suitcases over our heads until we started puking and everything. And there was bits of pajamas everywhere and there was you name it. We were in bits, yeah. And I distinctly remember the officer coming down, a young lieutenant. I can't remember who he was now. But he called him over. He says, "These haven't been attested yet. You know, they were only waiting. That was the waiting room."
You hadn't even signed the dotted line.
Yeah.
Did anyone go at that stage? No.
And there was question marks over a lot of people's heads. He says, "What the hell is this place like?" You know what I mean? So next thing, the NCO anyway, he reverted back to sit down, chaps. Yes, but that bit of a misunderstanding, you know. So we went in, took the usual, the Bible, and. Next thing we were felling outside and straight away back into Full Metal Jacket mode, you know.
That was your chance to get out at the start.
Yeah. And I think actually, would you believe it? I think 1 or 2 actually did pull the pin. This is what is this? Like one for
really,
one. Yeah. I don't think that happens nowadays, but that was my experience, you know.
Yeah, it's completely different. Well, I don't know what it's like nowadays, but when I was in, it was very relaxed before you got sworn in, and then when you were brought into the room, then you were stood straight to attention. You couldn't move for about half an hour. Then we were over, then sweeping for the rest of the day, waiting for everyone else. But Grant, once you're in, then right, so you done all your recruit training and your 2-3-star training in the Brew, did you, with the battalion?
Yeah, I was very proud actually to serve with the 2nd Battalion because their lineage went back to the Congo and the Battle of the Tunnel and Jadotville, and you know we were always steeped in that lineage. That you know, it was like the Bloods, the 3rd Battalion. Every battalion had their kind of esprit de corps, and they had their kind of history, not so much to live up to, but to be proud of, if you know what I mean. And it was. I'm still proud to this day to have trained with the 2nd Battalion. You know. and they served with distinction in Lebanon as well. And unfortunately, I don't just talk about bad things, but they lost 3 members on Tibney Bridge that time as well. So I passed out as a 3-star. I elected to stay with them. You're given a chance on final approval to pick a unit, and I wanted to stay infantry, but at that time the cavalry had a deficit, so 20 of us, half the platoon, were sent to the cavalry, 2nd Cavalry, same barracks, but different kind of, corps. And at first I was disappointed, but you know what? Turned out to be not a bad move either, because while they're not infantry in the true sense, they're still quite busy as an operational unit, and they do infantry skills as well, So yeah, it was great. It was great, Yeah.
Yeah, Grant. So you were into the Cav then straight away, were you, or did you stay?
Yeah, posted into the Cav, and then
posted into the Cav. The Horse course then, was it straight away?
Yeah, it takes about 3 years for you to be qualified as a fully qualified trooper. You start off as your basic DR, yeah. You'll do your off-road KLR 250, then your ceremonial 550 Kawasaki at the time, I think, and it was a Honda. Then they moved to Kawasaki, but they're always building anyway. And then you do your light and heavy Land Rover and truck, and then you do your armor, APC, ML90, Sisu, and MOAGs as they came into fold, so it was a very, very, very active unit, and heavily involved in cash and transit, ATCP, AT Civil Power, ATCA, AT Civil Authority, massively busy, really, really exceptionally busy outfit, but that was great, because you were never idle, you know what I mean? Quite intense unit, actually.
Yeah. It's a small, busy unit, but it's good that for a young lad or girl that's straight in to get their motorbike license in the first kind of years.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to fall off them a few times and realize 4 wheels are better than 2.
You used to see lads going around the cones, going out on their ears in the barracks, or falling in the middle of the square. Good crack. But did you go overseas then much, or did you have any stay?
I elected to go overseas, but it was ineligible because, as I said, it takes 3 years nearly for a trooper to be upskilled in their respective corps. So I did my light and heavy course, and I trained in 1990 and deployed in 92 then with A Company infantry unit to South Lebanon, And that was the start of my first trip. And there was a joke, I remember an old sergeant said to me, he says, you'll either hate it or you'll love it. You get the overseas bug, is called. I didn't know how he was talking about, But I thoroughly enjoyed overseas. I was single. I had no commitments, no ties, no mortgage. So between the deployments, I said to the company sergeant, he'd always be, at the time, a mixed platoon would always be deployed to the border on operations, right? So as a single living-in guy, I said to him, I says, look, I'll make your life easy. Instead of sending an MLO, like a married living out, I'd be happy to do border operations if you want. He said, yeah, it'd be great, no problem. That'll save me picking a guy. And so between overseas and border operations, I won't lie to you, I seen very little of the actual barracks itself, Calbrew, unless I was on a training course back down doing upskilling or or attached to the depot where I did a sniper course and stuff like that, So it's a funny one, isn't it? You could be in a unit there for whatever, but if you're active, you come back and people be saying, "Who's this guy?"
Where have you been hiding? You must be a good bluffer.
Hide and seek champion.
Walking around with the brown envelope under the arm. Grant. So, did you have many trips then overall, or was it just the one trip to the Leb?
8 tours, and
8 tours.
8 tours, and then I was in KFOR as well at the end. And no, I was on. I remember I was waiting man for Timor, but nobody fell away from that tour duty, so that was a 4-month lead into that. But Lebanon was great, and then towards the end of my time, Liberia and a few other Chad missions were coming up, but at that stage I was coming towards kind of winding down, so I did a deployment to Kosovo. So Lebanon was the main for me, and back in the day, not trying to do the old soldier, but it was quite hostile. There was still the active engagements out there with the local indigenous guerrilla forces at DFF and IDF, There was curfew at night. Zero. Anything with a light was a ready target. There was no lights allowed on after dark, and that was anyone with a light on in a house or in a car. They were deemed a target, So we've seen it quite a lot. I was involved in a lot of stuff out there with regard to, I didn't personally rescue hostages, but we were involved in a lot of stopping a lot of DFF kidnappings. They used to come in and systematically kidnap key personnel from villages like, that would be strongholds, Kerbat like stuff like that, and we'd set up stopgaps, and then we'd have cut-off groups, and we'd have armor in place, and then we would negotiate with them through an interpreter to leave the individual, and they could extract back to their safe lines, So there was a lot of very close ones out there, a lot of firing closes. My first tour of duty, we lost Peter Ward on a checkpoint, killed in action. And the highest military award for bravery, aside from Trooper Anthony Brown in the Congo, was awarded to Paul Coventry on that operation, where one of the guys was wounded and he went to his aid. That trip was very busy. We took every single position, took direct fire, indirect fire, firing close. And we were just very lucky that not more people were injured or killed. And I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but it wasn't simple.
No.
It wasn't what people thought, So.
Yeah, I think the trip that I was on in Syria would have been pretty busy. Well, it was busy enough. I wasn't that busy taking indirect fire, but it's busy enough. Yeah, we would have went out and kind of rescued a couple of people that got kidnapped. But yeah, it is what it is, right? That's what you're paid for. It's the bread and butter.
Exactly. Yeah.
But once you how long were you in for actually in total?
Well, I tell you, I started off as a young kid, 16, in the what was known as the FCA back then, D Company, 10th Battalion in Carlow, Tullow. So that was about 2 years of a lead-in time because there was a bit of an embargo on recruitment at the time. And then I got the call up. I was doing my apprenticeship and June 90, and I finished in December of 12. So officially in the Irish PDF, 22 years roughly, just shy of it.
21, 22.
And then the RDF, to call it now, another 2 years if you wanted to tag that on. So yeah, quarter of a century, I guess. Yeah, so
it's just long time. And
a long time, yeah.
Would you have stayed longer, or was your time done? Were you happy enough to finish up?
Truthfully, I don't want to be negative. I always speak in the positive, but the army, I saw it being neglected to a degree where I was triple jobbing. I was an instructor in several different roles: MOAG instructor, CRC instructor. I was heavily involved in the Sierra teams, like sniping and stuff like that. I was an NCO, obviously, but I was also in the admin cell for HQ company. Yeah. So I'd be deployed on exercises and training missions and attachments to different units, like up in the Military College B Company, Mon Mech now. And I'd find myself coming back to a unit where you had a mountain of work to catch up on. Like you could have an A inspection in the Lumen in the second quarter of the year, and then you had to go back through all your books and make sure dot the I's, cross the T's. And it was just gotten to the stage where I found that, it was stressful, to be honest with you. It was stressful,
Heavy kind of workload.
It was a heavy workload. I'll tell you how heavy the workload was. Sergeant Major Patsy Griffin, really good guy in the 3rd Battalion. He would have been started up in Connolly 3rd Battalion. Very, very good friend of my uncle who was in the ARW and stuff in 3rd Battalion. But I used to say to Patsy, I'm not trying to make myself out to be a hero or anything, but
no.
I used to say to Patsy, listen, Patsy, can you put me on duty Saturday? I could have been gone away for 2 weeks in Kilworth, Kilmooney, on a job, training guys or whatever. And next thing told, you have an A inspection coming up. So I wanted a day where I could sit down undisturbed and take out all the ledgers and go through all the books, And I often did 3 or 4 consecutive Saturdays just to get the books right. We had no company sergeant. We had no admin sergeant. I was the NCO with 2 privates. We had no CO. We had an adjutant who was acting OC. Like that's like that, like I just people are hemorrhaging out of the army in 012. That was the time of the restructure, the reorg.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that I was in 2008, and then that happened. Then second battalion merged into 7th battalion. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and I seen a
sure.
massive change in the forces then. Like people were wearing 2 and 3 hats, and it wasn't fair. Like I know people say, okay, you have a full battalion there, a complement of 850 or 900, whatever the S4 establishment is. And granted, yeah, look, if CIT or ATCP operations are kind of at a lull or a quiet, that doesn't negate the fact that you need these people, because like there's still a need for a full battalion, regardless of whether you think they're idle or not. They're not idle. They're there because they're trained and they're ready to act in the event of civil disturbance, which we're now seeing as a potential, a real potential
Yes.
after the Dublin riots.
Yeah, yeah.
And like people forget that, like it's not a luxury, the defence force. It's a need. It's a real organ of the state that's required to be maintained.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've said it before, but like the army, they're not paid really for the day to day, but more so they're paid for the job that they're prepared to do. So
Well, you're
you know,
prepared to stand
a
in
lot of
harm's way.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. You
I
have to be.
actually seen a quote recently. I don't know where I seen it, but I left the forces, and I'm still on the books of a private medical company as an EMT. So during COVID, I was heavily involved in that, and still am. But the armed forces, when a guy wakes up in the morning, or a lady, guy or girl, gets up in the morning, puts on their uniform, and they're in the armed forces, okay? The armed forces are the only organ of the state that won't say no to the government in the event of an emergency. They'll come and answer the call. Okay, everybody else can strike, everybody else can say no. Secondly, yes, firefighters die in the role of firefighter. Yes, ambulance personnel sometimes die. Yes, police people sometimes die. But they die as an incident, but not by accident. It's incidental, not taken away from the fact that they've given their life. But a soldier is told to put his life in harm's way. That's the difference. There's a huge world of difference between that and getting caught up in a moment and being put into a moment. And that's why the mindset of a soldier is different to a civilian, because that's why they always say you're no longer a civilian, you're now a soldier. And you don't stop or you hold the line. If you're asked to take a position and hold the line, you don't retreat, you don't fall back, and you don't forget the guy beside you, to the detriment of your own well-being, and that's why I think, not that soldiers are special, but they're different to any other organ of the state. I wouldn't like to say we're special. I wouldn't like to make that distinction, but we definitely are different. You know what I mean? In our role and in what we're asked to do.
Yeah, yeah. So it is completely different. But when you decided to leave, then, right? What was the first job that you took when you decided to leave?
That's a
What
great
industry
question.
did you go into?
So you spoke about 08. I won't say I seen the army in decline, but I knew I was coming close to pension, and I realised that the skill set that I had while they had merit within the organisation were redundant outside. Or do PMC over in Iraq, or what I'm talking about, with
Yeah,
conflict
yeah.
zone.
No, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Private
But
military contracting, yeah.
so literally, I rang around with a few guys that had made the jump, and I got some ideas about what do I need to survive out there. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't just walk out the gate. 4 years in the planning. So, guy said to me, "Okay, Steve, this is the current landscape at the moment. Okay, in the military, as you well know, we have several battle spaces, air, land, and sea, and of course, the Americans have space. We won't go there."
It's a different level of retraining, that one.
Different level, yeah. But then the real danger we have at the moment is IT and cyberspace. Okay, wars are no longer fought on the ground level, as we know. You can see it all over the world: drone technology, remote. Why the soldier is not redundant, his role is definitely multifaceted now. And So cyber warfare is where I actually went and looked at as a potential revenue stream. So I was advised to go through Andrews University, Scotland, and get a degree in cyber terrorism, which I did. And then I also went off and did a few other consultancy courses. And so that qualified me then to be eligible to be registered as a consultant with a number of national and international agencies, which has been very lucrative for me, with a lot of blue chip companies as their advisor in health and safety and predominantly security. So we can look at target hardening, we can look at all the multifaceted layers of the client from a personal level, all the way from the C-suite with their red team, all the way back down to the basic front of house guy, and then their target hardening of their building, and their cyber exposure and infosec exposure. So that's what I do, and it is very lucrative, and it's very niche, and it's like the quiet professional. It's not something that you advertise for that very reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's probably one of those jobs you don't really apply for. You're more so asked to do it.
It's great that you said that, because all my work is referral. Every single job is referral. You don't put a billboard there, or the company just doesn't say, we just lost both oars and we're up the creek here. Anybody help?
You're the paddle. But no, and look at the cyber guys. They fly under the radar. They're hard guys to find as well when you're trying to headhunt for a company. So it's good that you're in that niche. But you've your own business now. Like, how did you find, I suppose, moving from soldier to civilian to businessman? Was it a big jump for you, or were you have?
It was a transition that was kind of gradual. Yeah, I didn't just jump into this space. What I did was, when I left the forces, before I left, I also did a number of security related courses. So in Ireland we call it the PSA, and then in the UK it's the SIA, which is probably the standard that most companies look for when they're looking for bodyguards or stuff like that, close protection operatives. It's the higher end. It doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily mean that you're the go-to guy, but it's just a benchmark that people refer to. So I went in and did all those courses anyway to show legitimacy, and I worked in Northern Ireland for 2 years when I left the forces doing CP and for certain individuals and certain companies. And then after that, I took a job for another company out of Singapore as head of a data center in Ireland, which I was there for 3 years. So I was head of security for that. That was really interesting because I was working with, interestingly enough, the data center was a co-location site which had 40 clients, all probably some of the biggest players in the Northern Hemisphere, okay? And the requirement for due diligence and for security was massive there. The learning curve was steep, but the gains were amazing, absolutely brilliant. And from there, then after a while, I felt like, you know what? Flying a seat is not really my thing. While it's interesting and it's good, I think I need to get back out there and do what I do best. More fluid. The army was very fluid. You didn't know what you were doing sometimes from 1 month to the next. You didn't know what was coming at you from 1 month to the next. It was unpredictable, and that's what I think soldiers miss. They miss sometimes it's not so much, and it's ironic because the army is modeled around a kind of a regimented lifestyle. Breakfast, dinner, and tea at certain times. Everybody looks the same. But the reality is it's actually quite fluid because it's meant to be. You're supposed to be able to think on the hop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, what was the old saying? A life less ordinary. We used to call it a life less organised.
And you know what? It's wonderful. Or as Mike Tyson would say, no plan survives contact. No, he didn't say that. He said it in a more kind of straight to the point. Everyone has a plan till they get a punch in the face. That's the way he put it.
That's what I was like. Yeah, some days you didn't know what was going to happen when you went in. But look, that's the joys of it.
It is. I rolled out of that then, and I just said, okay, this is good, but it's been nice, but thanks, and moved on. And then I got an opportunity through grants, ETBs and stuff like that, to set up my own little sole trader operation, and it absolutely just took off. And I couldn't believe how well it did, because everybody has to do their apprenticeship. Everybody has to cut their teeth, find out the different pitfalls and in the military when you're climbing a mountain and you're on your chin strap and you're looking at the back of the heels of the guy in front of you, you're just saying, I'll focus on him, I'll keep going. You get to the ridge and then there's another bloody ridge and you're saying, will this ever end? But eventually you get to the top of the mountain, you know what I mean? And I heard a lovely analogy there recently. The top of the mountain can be very lonely. They say leadership is a lonely place, but it's not actually. The way to look at it is it's quite roomy because only a few people get there.
Yeah. It's
So
a good way to look at it, so but
yeah,
it can be lonely.
Yeah, so I don't find it lonely at all. I like being my own boss. I love it.
I look at it as well. I found since I left the army, I know it's this terrible thing, but I hate being told what to do.
Yeah.
That's why I ended up going out on my own. But that's just the way it is, right? You do develop a higher opinion of like your capabilities after you leave, I suppose.
You hit the nail on the head. Imposter syndrome, I think, is what I failed to grasp until somebody explained it to me. I was underselling myself and undervaluing myself. I benchmarked myself against kind of a strict kind of like, okay, you're a trooper, you're a corporal, you're a whatever Sierra team meat leader, or but they were only labels. They didn't reflect your actual ability. Like we have in the military an amazing aptitude for lateral thinking and adaptability. Whereas in a corporate, and I've been in a lot of them, you're told this is our SOPs and this is our ethos and mission focus. You don't sometimes get the opportunity to not so much question it, but to at least maybe query it is a better word. You know what I mean? Some organizations are so rigid like that they actually drown people's enthusiasm. When I have a team around me, I've just back from Glasgow there in the UK. We're running CP courses and heat courses over there for media personnel. And what I love about the team is if a guy comes to me and he's the lead for the medic, or he's the SIGs guy, or he's whatever, he's the man. I won't question. Well, when I say I won't question him, like if he's going around like with a Subaru and he's completely lost his mind, he's dressed like Klinger or a Mash, I think it's time for him to go. Like, you know what I mean? But if he comes to me and says, "Steve, I've the syllabus this week. I think we need to adapt it. We need to change it. Because we can work this into it." And I say, "Yeah, okay. I'll have a look at that." Right, you're the man. If you feel that's going to benefit the team, that's fine. So always appreciate people's strengths. Don't see them as a threat. You know what I mean? A good leader will always bring a team around him with strengths. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is good. And now that you're out, right? Do you work with many like ex-military personnel, and do you see the difference between working with like ex-military personnel to civilians?
I'm probably going to be shot for this now. I don't know, but I predominantly work with veterans. Yeah, I won't lie to you. And it's not necessarily partly because I'm networked and there's a trust thing there, especially with a high value target or a high net worth individual. I can't send in a guy that I haven't. For example, you come to me and say I have Joe, and I say, okay, have you worked with Joe? Yeah, I spent 6 months with him in whatever, Syria, Libya, wherever. I say, all right, what's his potential? What's his strengths? What's his weaknesses? And you say, look, he's good. What I says, would he be good as a TL, BG, or would he be only fit for RST, security team on the house? Yeah. And horses for courses. And I said, could. So the old boys network is there, but that doesn't guarantee you a place on the team, or doesn't guarantee you where you think you should be on the team. I've known people who are civilians, and I tell you straight, that are nearly better than guys that are in the military, because again, they have that corporate kind of mind, not corporate mindset. They may not, the skill set might be different in the sense that they may not have been hazed or duressed or their weapons handling, or they may not have been in a forward area or combat area, but they may have the soft skills. And that's what we need to understand. We need a blended approach when we're looking after our clients. We need a mix of hard and soft skills. And once you can get that right, you'll have an amazing team, and your client's going to be very happy and and that can be reflected in which is reflected in me referral work all the time.
Yeah.
You know? I only got a call today actually from an international company asking me to deliver a certain project for them, and out of the blue, and that was based on purely just a referral call. And
Yeah,
it's quite
just referrals,
it's
right?
actually quite exciting. I'm very happy with that. You know.
Happy days, yeah. It's
Yeah.
the key to having keeping your reputation, I suppose, above board.
Reputation. Yeah. 30. What did it say? 30 years to build, 30 seconds to lose. You know.
Yeah, nightmare.
Yeah.
But now that you're now that you're out, right, and given like the experiences that you've gone through, let's say there's a guy in there that's thinking about leaving in the next couple of years. What advice would you give him?
Well,
Or
first of all, I'd say well done on enlisted, because a lot of people have gone over to the likes of Livingston, the Royal Marines, two para, or the old guard, like the Irish or Welsh guards. A lot of Irish in there, you know. And
yeah,
best of luck to them, you know. Unfortunately, we don't have the exposure they have to travel, and you know. But the Irish Army is a great army. The Irish Defence Forces is a fantastic organisation. Okay, Esprit de Corps at the moment, I think, could be without question a little bit of a low ebb. There's no doubt about
yeah,
it. You know, but resource-wise, equipment-wise, they're second to none. They are very well equipped at the moment. You know, what advice would I give to a guy potentially leaving? So that was the pointed question.
mm,
I would say to him, consider all your options first. One, you have job security. Okay, how is this going to affect your family?
yeah,
Okay, because your family comes first. In all operations, you can't effectively be an effective team member unless your mind is clear. And if you're going away worried about X, Y, or Z, you're not mission focused, right? So until you have your mind clear and your family, you know your family is secure and you can support them, don't even consider leaving the military. Okay?
right,
It used to be a job for life because you got a pension at 21. Now I know that's gone now, but it's still a secure job. So while you're ruminating and thinking about maybe making the jump, start considering about, okay, where's my strengths? Okay, you have a lot of strengths, you don't even realize it. Timekeeping, okay? You might personal appearance, um, um, communications. There's so many facets to a soldier that he doesn't even realize he has. The ability to work around, as you just we were talking there a moment ago, he's goal orientated and mission focused. He's not watching the clock. He's not saying it's now 5 minutes to 11 canteen break. If somebody turns around and says to him, we're stuck here, we're stuck here. Okay?
mm,
Now that doesn't mean you abuse a person. I know that can be used in an opposite way to take
yeah,
advantage of somebody's loyalty, you know. So
yeah,
it's just you'll figure that one out as you go through life. But in the world that I live in, it's very fluid. It's nearly like I'm still in the military to some extent because we don't work
yeah,
to time scales. We work to mission and goal oriented scales, you know.
yeah. Good.
So I would say if you're going to go out, figure out what you're going to do. Is it going to be something like that, what we're doing, bespoke, niche, consultancy type, PMC, or close protection, or consultancy? Okay, they're all very fluid, right? But if you're going to go into corporate world, which is 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, make sure you don't undersell yourself, okay, or undervalue yourself. And do that by actually do what I did, reach out and find out where you can grow if you have a weakness. Now, sometimes if you have a weakness, you can't do anything about it. You have to live with it. Okay, but if you have but you could potentially have a strength you're not aware of. That's where you can balance the deficit. So
Yeah,
work on your strengths and live with your weaknesses. You know what I mean? Build on your strengths. You know.
yeah, brilliant. And let's say there's a young person listening and they're interested in joining the Defence Forces. What advice would you give them going in?
Well, first of all, make sure you get it tested first before they set the NCO.
Before we start getting corrective actions.
Yeah, the stress conditions and all that guys. Yeah. But
I'm
I'd
not
say
allowed to
go
that
for it.
anymore.
Yeah, it's a great experience. You can only understand it unless you've been on the inside looking out. Otherwise, you're only trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? So if you're thinking about joining, do it. Go
Yeah.
and enlist. Go and feel what it's like to be up in Kilbride in 4 seasons. You know what I mean? They're on the fire range.
Nightmares are.
Yeah, and the torpedo full of tepid tea and stew with roadkill. You know what I mean?
Oh, hot locks and eating out of Ziploc bags.
on that jazz. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's all fun because unless I'm picking up the brass, you're on the range and then a hot shell goes down your back and nearly flipping drives you into the stratosphere. But we're laughing about it because we were in the forces together. You know what I mean? We're not together, but you understand the lingo. So
Yeah.
it's you know what it's like to be on your chin strap and stuff like that. Unless you've walked the walk, you can't understand the talk. So go and do it. Get the 5 years done and find out if it's for you. If it's not for you, move on. But you've got something under your belt that very few people have. The experience of being an armed force. And going back to my initial statement, be proud for the rest of your life that you stood in harm's way. Whether you are actually in harm's way or not, you were prepared to stand in harm's way. And very few people can say that I was prepared to put my life on the line.
Yeah.
So, did you see flags waving behind me and jets flying that time?
We'll edit them in. Well, yeah, Grant, Stephen. So, thanks very much for coming on. Very much appreciated. And look, if anyone has any questions, just hit us up in the comments or send us a message. But I'm just going to stop the recording. You happy enough, or do you have anything else, or?
No, definitely. It was a wonderful experience to be asked. I'm very, and I know you've had several friends of mine on here, Keith Dorr and a few others that have. I've seen their podcasts. I think what you're doing is fantastic. It's raising the awareness of the armed forces. It's giving hope to people that are in it, or hope to people that are hoping to join it. I think it's a very positive thing that you're doing there. Very soon. My humor, I think you can cut this one out, but I always say to people, the tablets and the psychiatry is working for me anyway. So it's that's what they said to me in this. That like you don't have to be mad, but it helps. You need a sense of humor. So this is what I'll end with. Yeah, no matter where you go in life, no matter what you do, okay, life's not going to be easy. Life's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. But you must find meaning in it, and you must, if you can, find a sense of humor somewhere inside that kit bag that you're carrying, because it doesn't last forever, it passes. And if you can find that, you'll find your way through anything. And that happens in the army when you're with guys on a team. And I see that with myself when I'm on jobs as well. We've been in a few situations now where, will this ever end? But there's always that old bit of humor there, and it will end, you know what I mean? And you pull each other through. And I'm not saying that civilians don't have that, but I think that that's another facet that soldiers have, that determination, that drive, not so much ambition. I wasn't career-minded. I was adventure-minded. And I don't know if people can grasp that, or maybe you can. All I wanted to do was have an adventure. I didn't want to become a sergeant major. I didn't want to do anything like that. I just loved being amongst the guys and being operational and doing all these many and varied courses and testing myself, pushing myself to the limit, So that's it. And you do that in a different vein outside. You reach your targets, you make networks, you build your company, and then you. The nice thing about outside though is you get remunerated for it. You get more than a pat on the
back. Or a day in lieu.
You don't get Mondays off. I take the few bob. I don't need the Monday off. Exactly.
Yeah, I'll take the few bob any day. But thanks very much, Stephen. Very much appreciated. It was a good chat.